of the monthly meetings of the Southeast Beekeeping Club. This is a very special meeting tonight. We are going to be having a very entertaining and informative session tonight. As you can see from all the camera equipment, we have representatives here from the Rust-Oleum Corporation. Why, you ask, is the Rust-Oleum Corporation interested in the Southeast Beekeeping Club of Parker, Franktown, and the greater Southeast metro area? Well, in early January, I sent them an email and I said, hey, every month we give away a bottle of Krud Kutter in a little thing we call Krud Kutter Confessions. So every month I'm giving away a bottle of Krud Kutter and basically giving you free advertising. So maybe it might behoove you to give me a case of Krud Kutter. Well, not only did they send me a case of Krud Kutter, but they sent me an email and said, we are very interested. We've never heard of the use of Krud Kutter in beekeeping before. So we have had a series of really nice chats about bees, beekeeping, propolis, its benefits and its negatives, and they wanted to come and film us doing a session of Krud Kutter Confessions. So we're going to do that first, and some of these might be reruns. What we're going to do is I think we're going to do 4, maybe 5 here on camera here, and then if you still want to tell your Krud Kutter confession, we would love to hear it. And they're going to set up, I guess, out in the entryway somehow to do them sort of one-on-one. But that's sort of the program. So we're going to do that. Once we're done with the Krud Kutter Confessions, we're going to move on to our educational programming. I mean, the Krud Kutter Confessions is educational, let's face it. Yeah. We learn from each other's mistakes. That's why we do it, because we want all of us beekeepers to realize we all make mistakes. This is not a science, it's an art. And everybody makes mistakes, so we learn from each other. Once we're done with that, we'll take a brief break. You guys can get some food. And then we will come back and we will do Christy Ledgerwood, who's not here yet. Our resident nurse is going to give us a talk on allergic reactions and the use of an EpiPen. If you have bees on your property, you need to have an EpiPen on site. And she will talk to you about how to get one. Even if you've never had an allergic reaction, there's ways to get one. After we're done with that, we will do a brief tutorial on mites. We had this great talk last month from Brian Zavada about sustainable beekeeping. We're looking for mite-tolerant bees. Well, we sort of skipped over the mites themselves. They're really kind of amazing little creatures, and so we're going to learn about their biology and how to get rid of them. And that will be the end of our meeting. We are not going to do the raffle tonight because we just got all this stuff going on with Rust-Oleum. All right, before we get to Rust-Oleum, I just want to go through a couple of things. First of all, we always start every meeting with a welcome, and we have anybody who is a brand new beekeeper or brand new attendee of the Southeast Beekeeping Club, and Zoom doesn't count. If you are brand new, we ask you to stand up and tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're here, and what your interest is in bees. But first, I'm going to just introduce our board. I'm Ann Atkinson. I am the president. In the house tonight, we have Brian Clements, who's the past president and the inventor of Krud Kutter Confessions. We have Veronica back in the corner there. Veronica is our vice president. You met Janice when you checked in. She's our treasurer. And we have Mike Hadley over here. He is the secretary. On our board is Christy, who's not here yet, Howard, who's not here tonight, and Mark in the back. Mark Pomeroy in the back. All right, so you know who we are. If you have questions during the break, please feel free to come up. All right, if you are new to the club, if you've never been to a meeting before, please stand up and we will have you introduce yourself. All right, anybody else? All right, let's start with these gentlemen right here. Tell us your names, approximately where you're located, and what your interest is in bees.
I'm Mike, and this is Dad Herman. We're from Castle Rock. That's what
my grandpa got me into beekeeping when I was a teenager.
Oh.
I was the one that would have to climb the tree and cut the branch and lower that swarm into a box for the red ball. And we did that probably for about 12 years, and I went to college. Somebody else took over, I think. But started then, had a love for it, and get stuff in that bees. So.
All right.
Start up again. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Welcome. All right. Looks like Jeff in the back. Tell us about yourself.
Jeff, I'm with Kimberly. This is my first time she's been here anytime. We're over here in Wrightstown. And just looking forward to getting some money out of all this.
Do you have bees right now? Do you have bees right now?
We've got 3 hives.
Okay, you're on the road. Then something should happen. You should see some honey somewhere. Okay, thank you. Welcome. And then Pam in the back. If you didn't hear this on camera, she's been learning about bees from our friend Vance, and that's why everyone went, oh.
Anyway, I've got a couple of hives, and I'm getting these not this year, but
All right, well, welcome. And I can't see your name tag from here. Stu.
Stu. Lived between Elizabeth and Parker. Been up there about 8 years. And last year I got a hive, and then just suddenly we had a swamp in our trees, and we took it and started a new hive. So I'm just learning.
All right, well, this is the place. You're going to learn a lot. All right, we got some stragglers. Move on in. All right, so a couple of announcements real quick before we get into Krud Kutter confessions. Doug Wilson, who is here, over there. This is Doug Wilson. Doug is the most important person in our club because he has possession and custody of all of our equipment, including honey extractors, bee vacs, one of the suits that I borrowed today, just all of the equipment that we have. There's a full list of our equipment on our website, and this is his number. He does not do texting. You have to actually call him and talk to him like a human being, or you can send him an email at that address. All right, anybody need that up any longer?
Yes.
Okay. Doug, do you have anything to say about the equipment?
Well, I'm one of the few people that has a dumb phone now.
Okay.
So, you can text me, but you won't get an answer.
Okay, all right. He's got the old-timey flip phone. Okay, very good. You will be...
I did bring feedback for somebody today. I don't know if they're here yet. They both keep bringing us, but
Okay.
we've got extractor feedback, hive movers.
Oh, the hive mover, yeah.
They call.
Okay, so those extractors are going to become hot items here over the next couple of months as we harvest honey, and we need to extract. It's, believe me, a lot easier to do it with the electric extractors that we have than by a little $100 hand crank job. So, all right, did you get everything?
Yeah.
Everything's got? Okay, we'll move on. We had a very, very generous donation. 3 different people have made very generous donations to our club. Laura Elgin, Guy Singleton, who you might have met last time if you were here, and then our past president, Linda Larson. Linda Larson's donation filled up not only my truck, but Janice's big van. There is a lot of stuff. This is just giving you an idea. It's basically filling up my garage right now. So, Friday at 9 o'clock at my house, there is going to be a sale with this stuff all on sale. We have looked up retail prices. We're going to probably go with 50% of retail on all this stuff. I can't even begin to describe what's there. So please come by. That is the address. And come on by. It'll be both Friday and Saturday. And when it's gone, it's gone. So first come, first serve. Okay? Anybody need to get the address? It's in the Travoy neighborhood, if you know where that is. It's off of Inspiration and Travoy Trail. Ireland Way is the same as Travoy Trail. It's just in a different county. Anybody else need to see that? I'll get out of the way. Everybody can see it. Okay, moving on.
And do you need any more help?
I do, yes. If any of you are interested in helping, especially I think on Saturday, I've got a few people coming on Friday, but if you want to come help sell on Saturday, I would love to have you there. Because this is part of my neighborhood garage sale, and I've got my own personal garage sale going on at the same time. So it would be helpful if we had a couple club members there. All right, and in that vein, the Golden Bee, which Kenny, did you bring, do you have it? Can I have somebody
On the table, on the lobby.
bring me the Golden Bee? Bring me the Golden Bee.
Special box.
Where is it?
Right in front of you.
Okay. All right. So this, for those of you who don't know, this tradition was started by Debbie Comperta. She found this somewhere, I don't know. But this is the Golden Bee Award. And it goes, ooh, okay. So every month we give this to somebody who has gone above and beyond in service to the club, and that person gets to keep it on their mantle for 1 month. And then they bring it back to the next meeting. Because of this extremely generous donation from Linda Larson, and to thank her also for her past service to the club as president, it's going to Linda this month. So thank you, Linda. All right. Moving on. We will be doing our apiary class on June 15th at 10:30, and it's going to be all about mites. So what you learned tonight about mites, we're going to put into practice on the apiary class. We're going to try to do several different methods of testing, including alcohol wash, carbon dioxide, and a sugar shake. So you'll learn those methods, and then we'll look at if it needs to be treated, we'll treat it. But we'll see how those things work. Pollinator Day at Pine Lane Nursery is June 22nd. Janice is doing that event, and I'm sure she could use some help if you're interested in helping.
I'm helping her.
Who said that?
20th?
Yes, 22nd.
I'm helping her, and so is Chris.
Oh, good. Okay, so we do have some folks. But stop by and check it out. I think it sounds like a fun event. And then, of course, August 4th is the Parker Honey Festival. We need people to volunteer for the Southeast Beekeeping Club booth. Go to Sign Up Genius, and then the way you search for it is to search under Diane Kolbach's email address. So it's DKULBACK06@gmail. And these slides will be up on our website if you don't get it right this minute. But please sign up. We need people there. What we've said before, and this is so true, even if you are a first-year beekeeper, you know more than 99% of the general public, okay? And so as those people come up and ask you questions, believe me, you know the answer. All right, and it's just a lot of fun. The kids, we give them honey sticks for finding the queen, and it's a fabulous time. All right, and now, time for the grand event. Krud Kutter Confessions. I don't think Brian knew I was going to put this in the slides. But Brian Clements was our past president. He's the one that came up with the idea of Krud Kutter Confessions. So it's only fitting that he be the very first one to tell us his Krud Kutter confession. Brian, take the stage.
I'm never sharing pictures of you. Well, this was the year that I learned about bears, and we do have bears in Parker, and we had a run-in with a bear in my apiary. It was down the street. And I showed up one day to check the apiary, and I found what was left of a bear attack. And so immediately I jumped out of the truck and threw on my bee jacket, and because I could see different colonies on the ground, and I was like, I can save them all, you know? I went running over there, and I grabbed some stuff out of the truck. You know, I had, it was like a wasteland of boxes. they're all broken, and all the boxes will have the very front ripped off because the bears come up and they pull them down. So I grabbed some boxes and I'm picking up frames and I'm down on my knees, you know, getting what's left. What I didn't realize was that I had never zipped up my bee jacket. And yeah, they were not in a good frame of mind. And I had a couple bees just went straight up into my face and they got me all in the eye. There's a couple lessons to take away from this. Was my wife was like, oh, let's use essential oils on that bee sting. No, whatever. But the other thing is, whenever things fall apart, and it happens to all of us, is that keep your head, calm down, relax. Remember to zip up your bee jacket. So,
Brian, you want to go hand off your mic to Dave? It's okay? All right, very good. Oh, okay, cool. All right, next up, I believe we have Veronica. Veronica Thomas is our vice president, and she's also got a Krud Kutter confession.
Oh, yes. First year beekeeper, you know, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. And they tell you you're not going to get honey your first year. So I'm watching my bees in the vine. The first deep is filled, I get the second deep on. It's like, oh, well maybe. So I put on my queen excluder, I put my super on, go back a few weeks later, nothing's happening. But, you know, I read that some bees don't like the queen excluder. So I took off the queen excluder, put my super back on, and then I went back saying, oh my gosh, we're getting honey this year, so excited. And I got wonky comb everywhere and, you know, big fat things, and I'm so excited. You know, I tell my husband we're gonna have an open house. You know, we'll do a fall open house, we'll do extracting. My husband's a brewer, so he's gonna brew, and it'll be great. So the Sunday before, I go to get the super off, and I put on the fume board. But what they don't tell you, when you put the spray on, it needs to be like a 90-degree day for it to be hot enough for the fume to go all the way down. So I wait 20 minutes, I'm like, no bees in there. Okay, so I try shaking, and you know, bees can, remember I have wonky combs, so they're already really stuck in there. I try brushing them off, and I was like, you know, I think I read somewhere you can use a leaf blower. So I did. I got a leaf blower, I got most of them out, and I put them in my container, because I put it in the basement. I'm so excited. My husband works from home. Tuesday I get a call, there's bees all over the basement. It was brutal. I had a brood comb, plus I had honey, and all the bees all over the basement, so we're opening the windows, trying to shoo them out, trying to vacuum up the roast one. We still spun, you know, so, and there were still some bees in there that were getting dizzy as they were spinning. That's my Krud Kutter story.
Next up, I believe, Alan. You ready to go?
Sure.
Alan Brown, ladies and gentlemen.
Before I tell you my Krud Kutter tale,
Get up there so you're on camera.
I'd like to briefly talk about the Krud Kutter confession we never want to hear. We never want to hear of a beekeeper causing a wildfire. It's going to be a dry, hot summer, and even more dry than that. When there's a fire ban, this means you leave this at home. You don't get this out. Instead, recommend a spray bottle with 1-to-1 sugar syrup, and my old friend Tom Theobald put a couple drops of vanilla into that spray bottle, and that works really great. There's going to be plenty of times this summer, and use your judgment, even if it's not a no burn day. If it's windy, it could take off in a moment. You don't have a chance. So.
Public service announcement, thank you.
I've made a lot of mistakes in my years. so this is just my latest, not my worst, not my most expensive Krud Cutter confession. I love to mark my queens. For many reasons, I like to mark queens. And it can be costly because I make mistakes. So a few weeks ago, I was marking queens, and I love this one-handed queen catcher because it helps me reduce errors. However, I marked the queen the other day, it went well, and then I released her. A bee has 3 major body parts, a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. Perfect, I got it on the abdomen, I let her go, and I marked her, I painted her on the belly or ventral side, and not on her back. She was dead within 5 minutes. So that's my
All right, Kenny, you want to come up? And then we can do one more. So if there's anybody else that wants to do it, all right, we got Doug. Okay, come on, Kenny.
I got one question for Brian. If my wife did that to me, I'd make up a better story than that. Okay, I guess I'm supposed to tell one of my Krud Cutter stories. I've done a lot of stupid things. I think every day I do something stupid. But one day I had gotten these new insulated hives, and you see them in some of the pictures. They were pretty yellow and blue insulated hives, and I was excited. And the triple deeps are like, $500 for the triple deeps. And I put one in the back of my truck. I was going to take it out to my apiary, and I was excited to use that hive. And I got so busy that I forgot to shut the tailgate. And by the time I got where I wanted to go, I get out and my hive's gone. Yeah. And then I get down the road and go back to where it was at, and all I could see is bits and pieces in the middle of Parker Road. And so, the lesson to that is make sure that you secure your load.
Doug Wilson.
So when I came in, Brian said, I think you're one boot short. However, I'm not one boot short. I brought a visual aid. We don't have a picture of it, but we have the remnants of my issue. You might ask, why is there yellow paint on that boot? Well, I'm going to tell you why there's yellow paint on that boot. I had gone out to mark the queen one day, and I got all dressed up. I got my bee suit on. I made sure the pants I had didn't have any holes so the bees could crawl in. I bloused my pants and my socks so they can't come up. Put my suit on, go out. I catch my queen. I mark her with the yellow paint. I put the little paint thing in my pocket, little paint pen. I thought, I'm going to just stay out here a minute. I'm going to check out and look at my hive, make sure everything's okay. I'm working along, and about a dozen bees find that I didn't wear my big, thick wool socks. And they start to gnaw on my ankle. Oh! And I stand up and I start to go like this. And what I didn't realize is I didn't have a hole in this part of my pants, but I had a hole in my pocket. The pants had fallen down, I shattered it, I had yellow paint out the side of my pants, soaking my sock, and on my boot. And I thought, I've lost a $10 pen. That's not that good. The hardest part of the whole thing is going inside and having my wife say, how much yellow paint Moral of the story is don't be cheap like me, and when your old pants get holes in the pockets, turn them in.
Tonight, everybody is going to get a bottle of Krud Kutter. Normally, we just get one, but we have to give somebody bragging rights for the best story, all right? So I'm going to just say what they are, and you will clap, and whoever gets the loudest applause gets bragging rights. I am the judge, and my judgment is final. All right, so give it up for Brian and the bear. Brian. Alan and the queen marked on the wrong side, upside down queen. Veronica and the bee, not understanding the difference between honeycomb and bee and brood comb. Kenny and hive all up and down Highway 80, whatever it is. Last but not least, Doug and the yellow paint pen. All right, I hereby declare Doug the winner of the share the story tonight. If you would like to earn a bottle of Krud Kutter yourself, you could meet with the Rust-Oleum people. Are you guys going to do it out here, or where? Do you want to? Okay. So before we do that, though, Vivica, would you come up and just explain why you're here? Please. So Vivica is the person who originally contacted me from the Rust-Oleum Corporation. I want her to just say a few words about why the heck they're doing this.
Yeah, so thank you again for letting us be a part of your meeting here today. I'm joined, my name is Vivica. I'm joined with an incredible team, Jackie, Rebecca, Callie, Jeff, Dave. We're all here, and like Ann said, we saw that story, her email into us, and I used to be a TV reporter. I initially thought, this is an incredible story. I thought it was so interesting. I'm like, how cool would that be to do this, like behind the scenes story to what beekeepers do? Because, you know, it's such an honorable thing that you all are a part of, and it would be cool to see how you interact with the bees and how you are very deliberate, especially with using Krud Kutter and how that can help you safely do what you do best. So we wanted to really come out, meet with Ann. We've talked to a lot of different people already. We're going behind the scenes, and ultimately we're going to create this awesome story. And at the end of the day, we'll make sure to share it with you guys. You can put it on your website, share it with others. But in line with what your group does, we really want to educate about what you do and why it matters. So again, thank you very much for letting us be a part of your meeting tonight, and thank you also for not being afraid of the camera. We'll just, again, be like in the background a little bit, but again, thank you so much for letting us be part of your experience.
Thank you. Had some really good questions over the break. One was, where is the apiary class? The apiary class is at the Parker Water and Sanitation District offices on the northwest corner of E470 and Parker Road. I will put out an email with the exact address. If you want to come to the class, it's advised that you get there at least 10 minutes early, because we have to all go in together. Because we have, you have to go past a locked gate to get in. And so once we open the gate, we let everybody in, we close the gate, and that's it. Excuse me. Also, Mark Pomeroy, where is he? Oh, there he is back there. Mark Pomeroy made this lovely display of, there's a bottle with mites in it. There's a bottle with a wasp, says not bee on it. He's got a queen, he's got a worker, and a drone. So we're gonna put this in our education kit. But yeah, it's very cool. Thank you, Mark. Somebody else asked me, where do we buy this miraculous product, Krud Kutter? You can get it at Home Depot and Lowe's. A lot of times it's like the bottom shelf. It's in the cleaning aisle. If you don't see it, ask them to order it for you. It's real easy to get it. At Ace Hardware. Ace Hardware. Pretty much any hardware store that sells like cleaning stuff, they should have that. Walmart has it. Menards.
Different kinds of Krud.
Yes. Yeah, there's all kinds of different kinds. I've always used the original. I know they have some that take that. I learned a whole lot about the Rust-Oleum Corporation this afternoon when they were at my house. And yeah, and in fact, the guy who invented Krud Kutter is still alive. And his son works for Rust-Oleum. And so they're going to interview him as part of this thing that they're doing. Mr. Krud Kutter himself, yes. So that'll be exciting. All right, very good. Well, Christy is here. Christy is a registered nurse and a wonderful beekeeper, and she is going to combine those two things and talk to us about allergic reactions and EpiPens. Christy, take it away.
Can you mic up and then repeat questions?
Absolutely. Hi, my name's Christy. I have been a nurse for over 25 years, and probably 22 of those are on the night shift, mainly in the ER or pre-hospital medevac kind of stuff. So I've seen the need for this EpiPen. Just wanted to share with you, we do it every single year. It kind of gets to be a little bit repetitive, but it is super important, especially when we have our out yards in more remote areas. Gaining access can be an issue, as well as reactions to stings can change, not only amongst people, but amongst situations. And so it's just so important for us to be aware. Anaphylaxis is defined as an acute, life-threatening hypersensitivity disorder defined by generalized, rapidly evolving, multi-systemic allergic reaction, and it can be range from mild skin flushing and itching to severe respiratory compromise. And it'll go through stages, and the progression of it can be nearly instantaneous. I have seen someone who had a reaction, and within 5 minutes had an airway that we had to surgically correct, or it can take literally months for some of these delayed reactions to occur. So just please be aware of it. If you have a known allergy, things you can do to help yourself is, as soon as you get stung, to remove the stinger to minimize your exposure, and also take an antihistamine such as Benadryl, Zyrtec, Claritin. All of these are approved, even if you're on blood pressure medications, and talk to your doctor. If you start having a reaction, the biggest thing that people are concerned about is, okay, is my swollen eyeball an anaphylactic reaction, or is, what is something that I should be worried about? The key is multi-system. So if you get stung in your hand and you start feeling something funny in your throat, or if you get nauseated and have diarrhea, or if you have coughing, anything that is more than one system, that's your trigger. The sooner you seek care, the better. If you start having a reaction out in your apiary, and you have an EpiPen available, it is vital that if you use your EpiPen, the next thing you do is call 911. You don't do one without the other, partly because your EpiPen can wear off before whatever you're allergic to wears off, and it can come back. So there are a lot of different styles. This is the style that I brought last year. where you just pop off the yellow cap, slide it out of the clear holder, and give yourself your injection. You don't bother getting underneath your clothes. You go straight through your jeans or whatever you're wearing into the big fat part of the side of your thigh to hit that muscle, okay? If you have a kid with you that has a reaction, there are pediatric EpiPens. If you have an adult EpiPen, use it on the kid. There's no harm in having the additional Epi on board, especially when you compare it to the possible alternatives, right? They'll just feel like they're really jazzed up on a whole lot of coffee for about an hour or two. This particular one is a little bit more complicated. This is the one that my company currently uses. You just pull it apart to take the protective sleeve off and slide it out. This is the part where most people, because they're nervous and they're shaking and maybe they just got stung, get concerned. Remove the caps smoothly. If you hesitate, you will see people who accidentally inject their fingers pretty often, and then you've used your drug, and your finger turns white, and then you're freaking out even more, which doesn't help anything. So smoothly open it up, slam yourself in the side. And when you hit yourself in the side, hold it there for 10 seconds. It may make a little bit of noise. That's normal. When you pull it away, it will retract the needle so you can't stick yourself with it again. And then, of course, you call 911. Yes? Yes, ma'am. Yep, absolutely. It'll go through whatever you got on. So if you've got snow pants on, whatever, yeah, it's a good sized needle. So great question. So. Yep. Yep. Yes. Epi is epinephrine. It's basically adrenaline. So, yeah.
Christy, my EpiPen has expired.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go take care of it. I know that, but can I still use it even though it's expired?
It beats not having anything. Absolutely. It is absolutely better than nothing, 100%. And many physicians will actually write for, you don't have a known allergy, but you're a beekeeper and there's going to be people in your apiary. Ask them for, hey, can I have one just for my toolkit? So in case anything happens, better to have it and then not have it. The cost has come down quite a bit. So I don't know if I've ever met a physician who wouldn't do that. It is based on the manufacturer, but generally room temperature, and it will degrade in a hot glove box or whatever. So keep it with you at your temperature.
I was told it would be good. I have one, yeah, but I plan to get one of those freezer lunch bags. Keep it in there when you're outside.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. So just to make, it is important to keep it at room temperature. You don't want to be too hot. You don't want to be too cold. Lots of people like to leave it in their car. It'll degrade the medication. And so I had a great suggestion of keeping a cool pack with your beekeeping supplies.
A lot of our bee yards are further out, remote, maybe on private property. If you have a reaction once you inject yourself, should you drive or travel?
I love how everybody's leading. That's awesome. Yes, the question is, after you inject yourself, is it okay to hop in the car and go to help? And it is not a good idea if you have alternatives. If you're somewhere where you don't have cell service, if you're somewhere where you're very hard to find, it is wiser to be able to be found than it is, be as safe as you can, right? You have to make judgment calls, but driving while you're hyped up and stressed out is never a good idea. Good question.
So if I were to inject myself, what would the symptoms be of epinephrine?
Just jazzed up and kind of super excited, that's worth noting. But yeah, definitely good things to pay attention to.
Why do you need to also go to the hospital?
Great question. Why do you also need to go to the hospital or call 911? And the reason is because there are additional medications and additional interventions that they can do while you're at the hospital that will continue to decrease your histamine reaction. They can give you steroids to help with any inflammation. And sometimes the epi doesn't necessarily stop the reaction 100%. And even if you have a couple of EpiPens, it is quite short acting. So, if you ate a peanut or whatever that you're reacting to, that peanut's not going to be totally through you before your epi wears off. So, great questions.
And how long does the epi last?
I don't know the half-life offhand. Generally, I would say I've seen with these doses, half an hour-ish, give or take. Absolutely, it will totally depend on how involved the reaction is and how far it's gotten and how much of a dose of whatever you're allergic to you got. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and I have seen that as well. Yes, Veronica has her experience with this. The question is, what happens if, say, you get stung in the hand and all of a sudden you're streaking up your arm, but maybe it doesn't necessarily hit your airway, that sort of stuff.
Okay. I was stung on my ear, and then I came in, and my hands were itching, my feet were itching like that, and so I took a little bit of baby children's Benadryl, the little thing, and then I went to take a shower because it was hot, and I had streaks that ran across my back, and I had welts on my thighs and stuff. So calling the nurse, like, do we need a full ambulance for you? Like, no, I had been drugged, but I did not feel like I was having trouble breathing. I wasn't nauseous. I wasn't, anything that way. It wouldn't have occurred to me that I needed epinephrine, that I needed to take my shot.
I bet they gave you steroids.
They did, and they Pepsid.
Yep, Pepsid is an H2 blocker, which is part of the immune pathway. So if you happen to have some Pepsid, it certainly doesn't hurt to take it if you are in that situation. But yes, if you notice that you are having reactions that are in a separate part of your body from where your sting was, it is definitely worth, or if it is in a compromised area, such as near, the airway is the one thing that you worry about the most, right? Nobody can go without breathing. So if you get stung in the face and all of a sudden you're feeling your mouth is a little swollen or your voice changes, that's definitely a good time to interact. Yeah.
You mentioned steroids. I've been on some steroids there for a while, but would like prednisone or something, you haven't had any around for
So the question is, if you happen to have some steroids hanging around, and a lot of people do, for a variety of reasons, would it hurt to pop one? It makes it difficult to dose you later if you use something like a short-acting steroid, because likely they'll give you a longer-acting steroid, which you would be much less likely to have on hand. So I can never, it does take a long time to get off of those, that's true. And I never, those are by prescription because they are certainly not without side effects as well. So, of course.
you have epinephrine
The question is epinephrine versus pseudoephedrine orally. Good question. A lot of people do have pseudoephedrine at home. The difference is dose and availability of how fast it onsets and how much gets in. Pseudoephedrine is much lower dose and much slower. So.
Yeah, but you have to digest it.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, you're gonna have the reaction.
Well, it's cold medicine like Claritin or Benadryl or something, so it kind of seems like it would work in that regard also.
It's a different pathway. The pseudoephedrine is a pre-drug, if I'm not mistaken, and so it is pseudoephedrine and ephedrine are not the same medication, even though they sound alike. So they can. They can for sure. So great questions.
I have a friend who had to go ahead and use their EpiPen and a beekeeper, and that why is it that you can get stung 20 times, no problem, and then all of a sudden one bee might get the whole bee, you know?
Great question. So the question is why do sometimes people react more in some situation versus in other situations? And there's, humans are complex. There's stress in your life. There's, are you coming down with a cold and your immune system is already being taxed? Are you just getting, over something and how many times did you get stung? Where did you get stung? Did you get stung near a sensitive area? I know I've had a sting smack in the middle of my forehead, and I looked like a narwhal for a day and a half, and then it drifted down to my eyes. So I was glad I worked from home for that one. But
Send in a picture.
no. So, and I can tell sometimes if it'll react more, it'll be more painful. And for whatever reason, I can tell that one's, I'm going to know this one's there 3 days from now, but the 10 before it, I didn't, so.
And that's the same for shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
You can eat shrimp your entire life. And you go out one night, and there you go, you have a reaction.
And it is an acquired reaction, an acquired sensitivity. So just because you didn't react last time does not necessarily mean you won't react this time. Yep.
So would a person on immunosuppressants be more susceptible to bee sting?
That the question is done, but someone who's immunocompromised or immunosusceptible, would they be more apt to react to? It's a great question. I don't know the literature on that, but I would be highly suspicious that they would definitely would be. So.
Actually, you know better than I do. It seems that your bee sting, your body goes all out, and the anaphylactic shock is because of an overreactive immune system. So it almost seems like being on immunosuppressants would be a good thing. Logic, I don't know.
I hear where you're going with that, but it's a dysfunction of the immune response. There's a lot of different pathways. There's IgE, different pathways to keep it simple. So I don't, like I said, I don't know the correct answer. That's worth looking up. I'll look that up. Let you know. Well, I work down the hallway from the allergy folks, so I'll ask them. Barry?
I'd like to point out a couple of things. When you get stung and the bee walks off and leaves the stinger, and you don't grab the stinger and pull it out, scratch it off, because you'll dump all of that venom into you. She leaves the venom sacs. And if you're really careful, you can watch them pumping the venom into you while they do that. Another thing I was told by a doctor many years ago that bee venom is not like rattlesnake venom. You do not get immune to it when you get stung. You become actually more and more allergic to it every time. Like you were saying, it's just a matter of time, and that one time is done. So
thank you guys for being such great participants.
We are so lucky to have Christy to talk to us about this. All right, so our favorite subject, mites, varroa mites. Varroa mites. This is a picture, both Mike and I have stolen a lot of our presentation from Honeybee Health Coalition. They have publicly available slide decks, and so that's where I got some of this. This picture at the top, the black and white, that is a very magnified picture of our varroa mite. It is an arachnid. You can see it's got 8 legs. The front 2 are actually little pinchers that they use to grab onto the bee. In this bottom left picture, you see a bee right in the middle of the thorax. You will almost, if you see a bee or you see a mite in the middle of the thorax of your bee, you have got a huge problem, because that is really unusual. If that's the only place that mite can find to grab onto that bee, it means that bee is covered with mites in other parts. Typically, the mites want to be up in the bottom of the abdomen, in between those plates, you know, that they have, the stripes are actually kind of plates. And so they like to get up under one of those, and you can't see them. I've talked to beekeepers who were really bee havers, and who have said, oh, I don't have mites. My bees don't have mites. No, if you have bees, you have mites. They're there. It's just how many do you have, and are they affecting your colony or not? So, so just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. Where they really are, 75% of the mites in your hive are in the pupa, in the larva. Well, not the larva, the pupa. So after the bee, the pupa gets capped, that's when the foundress mite goes to town. We're going to talk about how that works. Any questions about that before we move on? They're kind of a brown color. Yeah, these make it look red, but they're really more of a dark brown. So this is a baby bee who just came out. You can tell because she's got her baby fuzz on her thorax. Again, you are unlike if you see one like this on a baby bee, it means she just came out of the cell. She's just emerged, and that mite just hasn't had time to get around underneath her. So you could see this, but that is what the suckers look like. All right, so I'm just going to go real quick through the life cycle of the mite. The reason you need to understand the life cycle of the mite is to understand how to get rid of it, how to treat it. Mike is going to go over the different kinds of treatments and how they affect the mites. So you need to understand the life cycle first. What happens? You know, the queen lays the egg. The egg, 3 days, hatches into the larva. So you've got the little larva swimming in the royal jelly. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and when it's about on day 8 or 9, the mites who are traveling around, we call them phoretic mites, are traveling around on the adult bees that are crawling around, usually the nurse bees, because they know where they're going to go. The nurse bees are walking around, and the mite can actually sense when that larva is going to be capped within the next 24 hours. They really are kind of, as much as we hate them, they're really kind of remarkable creatures. So the foundress mite, this is a female mite, is going to drop into that cell, and she's going to immediately hide in the royal jelly at the bottom of the cell. So you might be looking at your frame, oh, I have a bunch of healthy looking larvae there. I don't see any mites in there. Well, they're hiding. They're underneath. Now, they're not eating the royal jelly, and in fact, they could be drowned in that royal jelly, except they have a little way to send up these little things so it's almost like a little periscope, and they can actually breathe while they're underneath the royal jelly hiding. Again, remarkable little creatures. So once the capping happens, right here, we've got the capping, the foundress mite goes up onto the larva and starts eating. She digs a little hole and she starts feeding on the fat bodies. This is the revolutionary discovery that Dr. Sammy Ramsey, who's now in Boulder, made, which before he discovered this, everyone thought they were feeding on the hemolymph, which is like their blood. No, they're feeding on the fat bodies, which is even more devastating because the fat bodies are how the bee functions immune-wise. That is how the bee has immune responses, is through their fat body. It's almost like our liver, okay? So the bee drills a little hole in the side of the larva, starts feeding. She usually poops, okay, up on the side of the cell. And if you get into a hive that has died, and you've got all these empty cells, and you kind of tilt it, and you see all this white stuff, like little white flecks inside the cells, that's mite poop that's in there. And you can almost be sure that that hive died because you didn't control those mites. So anyway, she poops because that's going to be kind of a place for her babies to find. The poop tells the babies where, this isn't a very good graphic, the poop tells the babies where the hole is, okay? So then the next thing she does after she's been in there for 30 hours, she's going to lay a male egg. So just like our bees can lay, the queen bee can choose whether she's laying a male or female egg, the foundress mite can lay a male egg. So she lays this male, and then 30 hours later, she starts laying female eggs, and she continues to lay female eggs every 30 hours until the bee emerges out of that cell. Now, some of those females are not going to reach sexual maturity, and so they will die. Also, the male will die, okay? But what happens is these females, as they mature, and I think what they're trying to, that's an eye, but these females, as they mature and get to sexual maturity, are going to mate with their brother, okay, the male mite that got laid first. I have asked the question many times when we're talking to these fancy researchers, how do they not have a genetic dead end? I've never gotten a real straight answer about that. I think we then just have to appreciate the remarkable adaptation of this little creature. We have an answer.
Was because especially as the infestation gets worse, you don't just necessarily have one foundress mite per cell, and that's where you get your genetic diversity.
So you can have two foundresses in one cell?
Or 5, or...
Oh, well, okay. Well, thank you. I did not know that. All right, so that's kind of our explanation. But at any rate, normally the sister mite mates with the brother mite, and she doesn't lay any eggs. She just continues on fat and happy, sucking on those fat bodies of that poor pupa. And while there's all those bees, all those mites are sucking on that fat body, they are injecting viruses and pathogens into that poor pupa, including deformed wing virus. If you ever see a bee with a deformed wing virus, it's just so sad because they are just never going to amount to anything. But anyway, so we go around, the sexually mature females mate, and then on day 21, that pupa is mature. They chew themselves out of the cell, and along with them come the foundress mite and probably 2 sexually mature mated daughter mites, okay? The male mite gets left in the cell, and the bees actually will clean that out and get rid of him, and he will die. Also, any sexually immature mites will perish, or they just won't be productive. But the mites are going to travel. Again, we're back up here on top. The mites are traveling on the adult bees, and those are phoretic mites. And again, they're going to watch for or smell, because they don't have eyes either. They have no eyes. But they can smell. So they're going to smell for the larva that's that old, and we go around again. So you can see, and I think if you heard last month, Brian had a great graphic where it showed how many mites can come out. And if you look at a graph, just at one hive, if you can go from 1 mite to 3 mites, in 21 days, and you've got that happening over, 1,800 cells, you can see that population of mites just skyrocketing. Exponential skyrocketing. Now, the mites will stay pretty much in the hive, although they can go on to a foraging mite. They prefer the nurse bees, but they can get onto a foraging mite or a foraging bee and travel around and end up being transferred to another foraging bee from another hive at a flower. You can also have a situation where a foraging bee can be robbing another hive and infesting that. Have you ever heard of a mite bomb? A mite bomb is when a hive collapses and all those mite-ridden bees spread out and infest other hives, and they've just brought all those into your apiary. How many of you have had the experience of going, oh, I'm doing such a good job. I don't have any mites. I test. I treat when necessary. Everything's fine. And then the next time you go in and test, you've got 42 freaking mites. They probably had a mite bomb. Something came in and brought them up. So that's the life cycle of the mite. Any questions? Yes?
Kind of a question comment. So you would think that because the mite relies on its smell, they could develop something that would prevent them from smelling the larvae.
You would think.
You would think.
Yep. You would think. You're on it. That sounds like a grad school project. Yes.
My understanding is it's on day 5 when the mites go back in, the ones that just merged out. Is that incorrect?
I'm sorry, say that again?
My understanding is on day 5, the mites go back into the other larvae to start laying. Is that incorrect? So when they merge, on day 5, they're back in laying.
I don't know that for sure. They're watching for larvae that are this age.
From egg to
From merge, when they come out, when meat comes out, then and within 5 days, they're back in their laying.
not necessarily, because sporadic is now called dispersal mites, and so they can be on another bee and go around. They don't necessarily go right back in.
Well, I know, but it takes 5 days. Within 5 days, now they're able to go and lay it.
So you're saying they're not able to go lay until 5 days?
That's what I understand.
Okay.
That's why we
I hadn't
treat
heard that.
every 4 days.
Okay.
With the oxalic acid and vaporizer, so you kill those mites before they can go back in the lay.
Okay. All right. That's possible.
That theory is more to catch all phases of a brood cycle. If it takes, how many days does it take a worker bee to, how many days does it catch before it emerges?
21.
21?
Well, it's from egg to emergence is 21.
You continually have bees emerging, and the idea was that if you treated 3-4 times, 5 or 6 days apart, that you'd have a greater chance of catching the mites while they are phoredic.
And Mike's going to speak to the treatment. Anything else about the life cycle or how these little creatures? Oh, the other thing is they greatly prefer, the foundress mite would much rather drop into a drone cell instead of a worker cell. Can you guess why? Longer time. So she can lay more eggs and more females will mature to sexual maturity.
Well, they have to be able to smell the difference.
Right. So they would much prefer the drone brood. So 2 years ago, I think it was, we had a speaker at the fall CSBA conference, Zachary Lamas, and he has been doing his research on the idea of maybe we should be counting mites in drone brood as opposed to counting the mites on the workers that are walking around. Because those mites, and in the spring, when we are just counting what we can get off of these bees walking around, we're getting a very inaccurate picture of what we've got because so many of them are actually in the drone brood. So he worked on actually plucking drones one by one and testing them and getting the mite. It's a horrible, tedious process that the average beekeeper is not going to do. But he proved that, in fact, you may get 0 mites off your workers and just have a terrible infestation on the drones. So, who had a question? Yes?
So you're talking about genetic diversity and multiple boundless mites might make the same cell. Could an immature female then survive outside and then join in?
No.
What's the research behind her dying?
I don't know. I'm sorry?
The unfertilized, or the immature females and the male dehydrate in the cell.
And they die. Yep. They're not going anywhere. Yep. All right. Let's turn it over to Mike. He is going to talk to us about, well, okay, now what do we do? And I'm going to find his PowerPoint really quick. All right, take it away. Oh, here, you can have this. There.
Let's have the newish guy talk about treatment options. I'll preface this. There's going to be a lot of opinions about treatments. My personal experience is probably one of the most opinionated things. Different folks have different success stories, different failures, right? So I did pull a lot of my information from the Honeybee Health Coalition. I would highly recommend you visit their site. I'm going to share some basics of what they have available. There are options. We've talked about sustainable bees, right? Hygienic bees that might do a better job of uncapping cells, taking out brood that has mites. It's all a good start. You can use drone comb and try to control that way. You can use screen bottom boards. Most of what I'm going to talk about is we've got mites, right? We've done an alcohol test. Maybe we've done a sugar roll. Maybe we've done the cool new CO2 test. Come to the apiary demonstration. You can learn more about those things. But let's just assume we're at the threshold. A couple things that I saw said the thresholds are probably a little bit variable, lower in the spring because you're about to have this massive buildup of brood. So everything Ann just talked about, if you have 1% thresholds in the spring, that's probably more impactful or more risky than maybe a 2 or 3% threshold later in the year. But let's make that assumption. You've tested, you've done everything you can, you have some mites. I'm going to skip this because we literally just talked about it, but if you test all your colonies and one colony has 3% and the other 2 have 1% or less, should you treat them all similarly? Based on what Ann just said, yes. If one gets runaway mite numbers, those bees can vacate the hive. Very easy place for them to go is right next door, and now your other colony. So if you're going to treat your colonies, depending on size, I love Perry's opinion. If you have hundreds or thousands of hives, maybe you have a different strategy here. But in a single bee yard that most of us have, you're probably going to want to treat all of your hives with the same technique, the same approach to try to get your entire collection of colonies to the same level. So I was literally talking to I live in Stonegate, right off the corner of Lincoln and Chambers, and there are 3 hives out in the field across Chambers that have, I think, 7, 8, 9, 10 supers on already. So I'm very jealous. I'm not quite there yet, but yeah. Right. It's all our houses in Stonegate with the nice flowers and the big bushes and the big trees. The first thing I'll say about treatments is have a plan going in. Know what time of year you're in. Have an idea of which treatments might make sense. The worst thing you can do is test for mites, realize you're really high, and then try to go online or try to figure out, hey, where can I get some treatment options? And it's going to take a week to get here. there's local options that you can get to, but urgency is a key factor in this. Be ready to treat, have a plan in place. But these are questions, and they actually have a really great online tool that you can walk through this. Do we treat if we are below thresholds? We have 0%. Again, there might be differing opinions here, but as Ann talked about, these mites, they're arthropods, just like bees are. We're trying to kill a really small bug on another bug, right? Probably the most human thing we can equate it to is like chemotherapy. Not something you want to go through if you don't have cancer, right? Not something we would all sign up for. It is fairly stressful to our bees, to our hives. It can be. And so just be aware and make sure you're making smart decisions. Synthetic and organic treatments, or just organic, I do feel like this is a little bit nuanced in that all these chemicals, most of them are organically derived, right? They come out of nature. So does cyanide, so do a lot of harmful things. Just have a mindset, have a perspective that you're gonna stick to. The most important ones, because of what Ann just talked about. Do you have brood in your colony? Because that's where most of the mites are gonna be. Treatments have varying levels of effectiveness on capped brood. Some work okay, some don't work at all. So you have to know, where's my hive at? Is it ramping up in population? Is it winding down? Is it winter where there may not be any brood at all? Supers is probably the next most important question. There are a lot of legal and label directions that some people may or may not choose to follow, but generally there are very strict guidelines on whether or not you can use certain treatments with honey supers on. Think of our time of year, right? Right now, most of us probably have brood. Most of us, unless you just installed a package or a nuke, probably have some supers on right now. Today was pushing 90 degrees, which also has a significant impact on your treatment. And you also got to know what your colony's population is doing. Again, I mentioned a really great online tool. If we have a minute here, I'd love to pull this up. There's a lot of animations in this that I did not put in here, so bear with me. I love this quote. I'd never seen it before. Everything Ann talked about, we do have to kind of admire these mites. They are incredibly complex. Quote at the bottom, for every complex, there's an answer that's clear, simple, and wrong, right? Like complex problems typically require fairly complex solutions. That's why you have to have a plan going into this. You're not gonna be able to just decide, well, there's some mites, let me just throw this in there and hope for the best. I will tell you a story about that in a moment. We talked a little bit about, physical controls, non-chemical things that you can do. There are plenty of, I hate to call it natural, but like natural beekeepers who are opposed to chemical treatments, et cetera. Some of these things do okay. You've seen these green drone frames, right, where the cells are a little bit bigger, so almost the whole frame turns into drone brood. If you can pull that while it's capped, that can be a really effective way to kind of get as many mites on that frame as you can and get rid of it. If you can't time it really well, it's actually far worse, right? If you get a whole frame, both sides, that's all drone brood, and you have high mite counts, and all those bees emerge, now you've like quadrupled, your problem is much bigger than it would have been. Requeening, that's typically gonna give you a pretty good brood break because of the time to raise a new queen, for her to mate, et cetera. The mites struggle to reproduce when there's no brood because of everything Ann just talked about. Those are helpful, but at some point, you're probably gonna have to do a treatment, right? So let's look at our options. Sorry. This is a really quick really little eye chart. Happy to send this out. We can maybe send it in the email. We can also put it on the website, et cetera. I'm just gonna go through. So Apigard is from Thymol, along with Apilife. Then we have some formic acid treatments, Mite Quick Strip, Surformic Pro. Apivar, we're gonna come back to that one. Amitraz, oxalic acid, we'll talk about a lot. And then HopGuard. Again, there are lots of options here. I would look each of these up and just try to be generally familiar, but I think the bigger, more important piece is the columns. So one is the time of year best used because of all the factors that we just talked about. There are some treatments that can work more effectively in spring because they can get through the cappings or the capped brood and directly target the mites in capped brood, where others can't do that and have to work once the bees are emerged. And that's why I started the discussion about treating every 4 days. That's just to try to capture all those new bees that are emerging. They have mites on them. If you can treat and catch most of those, still effective, but there's always a chance you're gonna have some capped brood that is not gonna be treated because the treatments can't get through there. This is fairly recent research on efficacy. The reason I pointed out Apivar, based on their latest research, 95% of mites are starting to show resistance to Apivar. I'm not saying it's a bad option or wrong to use. Just make sure, do your mite counts, check after you've treated to make sure that it actually got rid of your mite problem. There's nothing worse than treating and just assuming that it worked really well, and then you go into winter, hive's really weak, has deformed wing virus or a bunch of other vectors, things that can really hurt your colony as they're going through the most difficult time of year. Use with or without brood. Most of these are pretty clear. There's some that says with some brood, and I'm like, well, what does some brood mean? Like, my hive always has some brood. Temperature. So I mentioned this earlier. Today was almost 90 degrees. I'll tell my story now. So exactly what Ann described. My first year, had 2 hives, did my mite checks pretty regularly, 0%, 1%, 0%, 6%. Oh, like, still had my supers on. It was August. I was like, well, I got to get the supers off. I don't want to try to find it. Like, I'm going to be straddling supers, no supers. Pulled my supers off and then went with Apivar. It was fairly warm. My queen immediately stopped laying. Look at the length on the treatment here. 42 to 56 days, where my queen basically shut down in August, September for us. What should she be doing during that time? Laying everything that's gonna get my colony through the winter. It was the saddest little colony. One of them hung on, so a little bit of success. The other one did not, right? Like 12 bees seemingly made it through the end of winter. So if I had paid a little more attention or had a cool chart like this, it clearly says Apivar should be used in the spring, not early to late fall, right as we're trying to build up for winter, right? So lesson learned. Again, you're gonna do a mite test and you're gonna have a high percentage of mites and you're gonna kind of freak out, especially if you're a new beekeeper. It's gonna happen. That's why I keep reinforcing, do the homework before you get to that point so that you have a plan. You should be doing these mite checks monthly so that you have a pretty good picture, but you can also get caught off guard and not know, and then you kind of panic, what's available, what can I get quickly, let me just try to do something. So I'm gonna pause here. I would love for other folks to weigh in. I do have more detailed breakdowns of like each of these examples. Given all the animations, probably take me an hour to get through all these. But any questions, any thoughts, any perspective on these? I was counting on you.
Apivar is a synthetic. It'll lay in your wax forever, and it's becoming ineffective.
Yep.
A lot of beekeepers are losing. A lot of colonies don't learn the Apivar is the happy ground fast. Think long and hard before you do it.
Yep.
In some situations, it might be good. But I stay away from synthetics because it lays in your wax. Be there forever.
Yeah.
I use silic acid neutralization. Everybody beats me up. And bad guys, bad dogs in the room, no person beats me up for it. Everybody beats me up for it. But I use silic acid vaporization exclusively.
Twice a year?
I start when I pull my honey supers off. I start vaporizing every 4 days, 24 hours after the treatment. So I put in the boards at the bottom. I got string bottom ones. 24 hours later, I'll pull them out on my mice to see how effective the treatment was. 4 days later, I hit them again. have 50 colonies, you're gonna be out there, but I built these guns, you can see them, last weekend. 20 seconds, I can treat them high, I can treat them whole acres.
Yep.
And I go out there and I'll treat, before I start climbing in the morning, early in the morning, and I start in August, start August, and after, about 21, 30 days, about 6, 7 treatments, I'm down below that threshold. And then I start feeding. And then I'll hit them again a few weeks later, just one time, just for a check. This is how I do my Mite test now. I mean, to go in there and do an alcohol wash, 30 bees, why do so far now? The 300 bees, I mean, it's kind of inaccurate. Where I could give them a shot of acetic acid, check my board 48 hours later, I got a pretty good indication where I grew is one thing that showed up for it. And how many mites I got. I'll go back in, like I say, probably in September and hit them again just to see if they have mite bump. Like one of my tree makers, my bees go and rob them out and bring their mites all home.
Yep.
And so I'll just hit them again. And then right after Thanksgiving, when the rootless, mostly rootless, I'll hit it one time. A week later, I'll hit them again. They get 95% of the breading mites, so by then they're mostly breading. And then a week later, I'll get 95% of the 5% I didn't get the first time. Then for good measure, I'll hit them again in January.
So
I did alcohol washes just like I was supposed to, just like everybody trained. No mites until July, until July, and all of a sudden I started seeing mites.
Yep. So
it's effective for me, it's not effective for a lot of people, and I've gotten beat up over this thing. Yeah.
And that was the point I wanted to make is I really trust Pete. He's a great beekeeper, has infinitely more experience than I do. I can't do that. I got 3 kids. I got a 9 to 5 during the week. I can't be out there every 4 days, right? I've got an explore an option that works for me. The other thing I'll say, and I just across the board for all treatments, make sure you have your protective gear. There was no world where I walked into beekeeping where I thought I needed a respirator with organic compound filters. Like, there are some fairly dangerous chemicals that we're using. So make sure once you decide on a treatment, you're following the directions in terms of keeping yourself safe.
How many grams per double bee? Well, now, that's a horse of a different color. The EPA suggests does not work. Jennifer, in Georgia, she proved that the EPA treatment does not work. 2 grams per eye every 7 days for 3 treatments. Does not work. You will kill your eye. I use 4 grams every 4 days until I don't have mites.
Yep.
6 to 7 treatments.
The club does have a vaporizer that you can use with the battery. You cannot have it for like 60 days. So keep that in mind too if you're going to need your own equipment.
I know that our former equipment manager, Tom Cartwright, him, Scott Lizard, who's helping out in the club apiary, they swear by oxalic strips. And I will confess, I have a set of Swedish towels sitting on my patio table because I'm going to cook up that, the glycerin and oxalic, and make some strips. Because to me, Pete, that seems like it's a slower release. It's always there. And when we were out at the apiary, and this is the same message Tom was saying, it stayed with the hive for the season.
Yep.
So
So how do these treatments work, right?
So, since we're recording this, what they're saying is not legal. Follow what directions on the package.
And I'm not. This is why I said let's let the new guy who has minimal experience come in and present about this, right? So I agree. You should follow the legal guidelines. What you want to do with your hives is ultimately up to you. But these treatments, right, like contact, right? You got to have some bees come in contact with the treatment, and then as they mingle throughout the hive, go about their duties, right, whether they're nurse bees or whatever, they're going to brush up, they're going to rub these chemicals basically across one another. And ideally, that's how you get full coverage. That's why on the previous slide you have some of the timelines, like here's how long it takes for a strip that hangs in one little 1-inch area of your hive to effectively treat your entire colony, right? If you have 2 boxes, 1 box, there's going to be different directions, all those things.
So the sponges is not street legal, all right?
It is street legal, it's not.
The sponges have been tested over and over and over and over by Randy Oliver and other people who are well respected. If you go back and look at the bee culture and the American Bee Journal over the last 6 months, you will see extensive discussions about why the FDA will not approve that. But that's a whole other issue. But we now, as of I think January, there is a product now that has been approved that is kind of like the sponge. It's the same principle. It's not a sponge, but it's an oxalic acid strip that you hang down in between the frames. And it's supposed to kind of do the same thing as the sponges do. But that is the only sort of long-term oxalic acid treatment that is officially approved. One of the problems is that the beekeeping industry is not a big enough dollar industry. We're not like the wheat farmers, right? Or the corn farmers. Big Pharma and Monsanto and all those guys really don't have time for us. And so we kind of have to do it ourselves. And Randy Oliver has written some really good kind of op-ed pieces about, if you don't approve these things, beekeepers are going to take matters into their own hands. And that's kind of what's happened. It's not legal, though. It's not legal to do it that way. The label is the law.
But my name is Pete, and I feel okay about it.
So my.
If you got a 3% Milo when you put on your sponges, you'll have a 3% Milo when you take them out 47 days later. It does not knock down. It keeps it at, if you got a low threshold, it'll keep it at that low threshold. If you got a high threshold, it'll stay at that high threshold. They do work.
So my advice, if you're a newer beekeeper, this is really helpful, right? This is kind of a step-by-step. Here's a pretty basic plan that's going to work for most people. Here's what you do in the spring. Whether you had a package, a nuke, an overwintered colony, then as you move into summer, right? High population, but a little bit more stable, more active. Fall is when it's most important. If you have mites going into fall, especially here, you're going to have a really hard time getting through the year, right? You're going to have a really weak, what? Yeah, exactly. You're going to have a really weak colony, potentially with multiple diseases. If you're going to try to treat it, again, these treatments are not the easiest thing for the hives to go through. And so you're going to have some challenges in fall. That's why a lot of folks talk about it's really important going into fall, making sure they're under control. And then as soon as you get into them in the spring, make sure you're as low as you can get before that huge population buildup happens. Christy, were you going to say something?
I have a question for Pete. How do you compensate at all for the size of the hive with your treatment? If you have a weaker hive versus a stronger hive?
No. I got these little blue caps that fit on my guns, the silicone caps. I fill them up like a snow cone. Because they've also proven in the University of Florida that you cannot over-treat with silic acid. And it does not hurt the bees.
Like silic acid vapor.
Silic acid vapor. And on dribble, it's a different story. If you do multiple treatments of dribble, you will pretty quickly.
Yeah, so real quick, oxalic acid, you can vaporize it, you get a gun, it heats it up, it sublimates into a gas, goes throughout the hive. Typically, you're going to seal the entrance so that the vaporized acid goes throughout the hive. Dribble is you're going to make a liquid mixture and dribble it throughout your frame so that it kind of rains down on the bees. Be aware, temperatures and dribbling stuff all over your bees can be a challenge, right? So again, just know what you're doing. Do your homework and have a plan going into it. The last thing I'll share, I know we're a little bit late, building off what Ann said in terms of research, these chemicals, we are using them a lot. They're some industrial scale. Talked a little bit about mite resistance to some of these things. Switch it up. I wouldn't use oxalic acid, maybe the exception, right? But some of these strips and other things, if you use those things over and over and over and over and over, you may not see it in your hive, but it's already such a challenge for beekeepers as a whole to find effective treatments that you can use. Don't want to use the same thing and give these mites an edge to build up resistance to some of the treatments that we have. The coolest thing I saw in all of this, a little contraption you put in the corner of your frame. You know how a lot of people knock out the corner so the bees can kind of use that lower corner as like a tunnel? It's basically something you mount there. It's got little cameras and a laser. And when the bee walks through and the camera sees a mite, they've done all this, machine learning to train these cameras, and the laser shoots out, nukes the mite, and it falls off. They're about $1,200 each, and they recommend that you need, again, scale, right? We don't have enough. Like, if they were making millions of these, they'd be real cheap. But right now, they're super expensive. But it is a really cool invention.
I'd like to say one thing, because, I'm a so-called vaporizing user, and I know how to use it. And a new beekeeper, and I know what Mike's saying here, new beekeepers, you don't want to push them down a path that they can get hurt. If you're uncomfortable with something like that, Apogard is my number 2 treatment. Apogard, any beekeeper can do it. Put it in your hive. It's an organic treatment. It's not a chemical, and it's effective. August, before the honey seekers on, put Apogard on, but it'll go up high temperatures, unlike your formic. Formic you can't use over 85, it'll kill your queens. Apogard won't kill your queens. Sometimes they'll run them out of hive, but it's just temporary for some days. Apogard if you're not comfortable with it. So yeah.
Who wants to be our guinea pig real quick? Anybody? Anybody who has a colony? All right, okay. Deanna, you want to do it? All right. Let's get started. Okay. This you'll see. So this tool online is going to help you select a treatment. I'm going to say yes. You don't get to answer that one. We need to treat. Are you open to synthetic treatments or only naturally derived treatments? Okay. Do you have brood?
Yes.
Great. Do you have supers on? No. Where's your colony's population at? It's probably somewhere between these two. Yeah. Which one? Okay. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, right? There are different approaches that you can take to this, but again, if you're a beginner looking for fairly simple resources, this is a really great tool to just put in 5 questions, spit out some recommendations. You still have 5 choices, right? So you still do have to do a little bit of legwork on your own.
4 of those are temperature sensitive. So
Yep.
the little thermometer in the lower left.
Hey.
If it's 95 degrees, you can't probably use those.
Hey Pete, does HopGuard work? That's generally been the response to that one. So some of these you can do some broader research and understand what works with them. Alan said it's like bong water. So whatever that means to you, maybe your bees will love it. I don't know. So the overall site is honeybeehealthcoalition.org. They have a ton of other resources. This whole deck that I conveniently lifted with Ann's permission was all on their site. But this tool, we will send this link. Sorry, I covered it up. Yeah. They used to have a really cool app. I think I actually demoed it once where you could shake your phone. The app is gone though. I checked last night. The app is no longer functioning. But it would tell you how hard to shake your phone to equate to an alcohol wash. Like, here's how hard you need to shake your alcohol wash. It is 8:20, so.
Speaking of alcohol wash, I don't drink, but anyway, what about the sugar, the powdered sugar?
So I would recommend, if you can, come to the apiary class on June 15th, because I think we're going to do an alcohol wash, maybe CO2, and I don't know if somebody was going to do sugar or not. Yeah.
This is going to do a sugar shake. Yeah, we can do that too.
I tell you what, hands-on for alcohol washer or like check is worth its weight in gold.
Yep.
Because you're so intimidated with the beekeeper, you won't do it. You won't do it because you don't know how, so go hands-on and watch it done.
Yeah.
And you'll find out it's just not that.
The biggest hurdle for me doing it is I was so worried about killing my queen, and once I got comfortable with finding my queen and separating her, I got a lot. It's still not a pleasant experience. You're killing 300 bees,
right?
But it's at least, but we think about how the worker bees sacrifice their life for the hive. I mean, they do. They will sting whoever's threatening their sisters.
And the 300 bees in the sample is going to be far less than letting mites run unchecked.
Much. I'm sorry. Yes, up at the water treatment plant. Right. Okay. Let's get out of this. Question: why won't this go away? And show. There we go. Okay. Find June 2024. There we go. Oops. No. I don't want to click this. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Question. July 3rd, it's of course July 4th Eve. And so we want to hear from you as to whether you will be here or not. If this is a day where everybody's going to be partying and 5 people are going to show up, we'll cancel the meeting. If we do have the meeting, now I did a little quick poll on our Facebook page and most people wanted to come. What we'll do is we'll talk about honey harvesting and the Cottage Food Act. If you're going to sell or distribute your honey, you have to comply with the Colorado Cottage Food Act, and I can give you a talk on that. But show of hands, how many will come on 4th of July Eve? Okay. How many would not come? I don't know, it's half and half. I will be here. I got nothing to do. So let's go ahead and have the meeting and just know what you're going to miss out on honey harvesting and Cottage Food Act. Before we disperse, we've got 10 more minutes here before 8:30. Does anybody have any burning question they want to ask? Yes, Mark.
I just want to ask, are there any beekeepers that have never actually seen a mite before?
Oh.
I have some sample mites for you guys so that you can compare, so you know what colors in your size.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
They're still on the bee.
Thank you. Any other questions? Concerns?
You know,
Yes.
this mite thing is the number one issue from the beginning. If you get past this hurdle of mites, beekeeping is a lot easier. I don't move bees because this mite thing, once you get your treatment regimen down, whether you use natural water or some of these other organic, even the synthetic, once you get this treatment down, you'll be a lot better beekeeper, and that mite thing will be
And the true test is, does your colony make it through the winter? That's the true test, whether you controlled your mites or not. Yes, Brian.
I'm sure y'all saw some article. I think I saw it on one of the Facebook groups, but someone was advertising they can come, you do auxiliary treatments for you one time, or you can do a a 3 or 4 treatment plan. So there are also options in the hood for people who pay to have someone come out and do a treatment. Just something to be aware of.
You know, the only real expense for doing a vaporization is the unit you're going to vaporize with. The oxalic is pennies. I mean, the actual oxalic acid is pennies. What? Well, if you're Pete and you can like make these artistic mechanical things, then yeah, you can make your own. And actually, does Kenny still make his own? Yeah, Kenny makes his own and sells them.
There's a lot of sources, Rob,
yeah.
King Floor, he makes a good unit. John and Resource, he makes a good unit.
Man Lake or the bee supply companies sell that. Is it Provate or something, which is kind of like what, $500?
So, if you're gonna vaporize, you do need a power source. Typically, it's a battery. Some of the nice new ones will use like a DeWalt or a Makita battery that you just plug in. Those are super convenient, but also fairly expensive. Yeah, you can. The ones you get off Amazon is just 2 battery or terminals that you're gonna need to connect to a battery. So make sure you have a power source or a battery or something.
Yes, Alan.
I wanted to ask, how's swarm season doing? Are we ready?
Oh, Tim, yes. Talk to us about
no real swarms are coming in now. It's all more or less extractions. A couple of swarm calls came in, but they're gone by the time we get there because it's so hot and they're just stopping and going on. So 2 over the last week, roughly, of swarms. But outside that, it's all extractions now.
So Tim put on our Facebook page, he kept a really great map and showed where all the swarms were and where all the extractions were. I was shocked by how many extractions there were. That tells us we're not, or the community, I'm not saying you all, but the beekeeping community is not, there's a lot of bee havers out there who are not taking care of business when it comes to swarm control.
They're called the getaways.
The getaways, yes, yes. And it's easy. I mean, I had one swarm I swear to God, I did everything I was supposed to do and they still swarm. So it happens. Oh, good Lord. Have we not told the apiary story yet? So those of you who weren't at the apiary event this past month, we had this big plan. Brian Zavada gave us this great talk about the UBO. Oh, we're going to watch that in action. That's going to be so cool. What happens? We're walking down that road to get to the hives, and we're walking through a cloud of bees. They are swarming, and we followed them. We're like going through the brush. I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's not an easy thing. So we're fighting the brush, and they finally land in this totally inaccessible place. Brian had a nuke in his car, so we brought that out and kind of was like, okay, well, if we can kind of get them down in there somehow. And there were some that were were on a lower branch, and I kind of bumped them into the box. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe they'll kind of tell their friends that this is where it is. No, that didn't work. So one of the people that was there said, oh, I've got a bump bucket, but my husband has it. Anyway, so we wait to get the bump bucket, and by the time we got that, the swarm was gone. But that was not the first swarm that had come up. How many virgin queens did you guys see in that hive?
There were 15 or 20 queen cells. Some of them were actually not big.
And so Janice actually took 2 virgin queens home with her. A couple other people took, and the little girl, was it your daughter? Yes. So Chris's daughter, bless her heart, she's how old? 9. She got stung by a virgin queen. And we all told her, this is really special. This is good luck. Which I think it is. I'm gonna say that's good luck, so.
So I had 3 swarms on my property last weekend, 2 weeks ago actually. So I found the one on Friday, and it was low, hanging on a tree. It looked like a nice little coconut, no, pineapple. And then the next day there was, and so David left already, he came and got that. And then the next day there was one higher up in the tree, and I felt like a beekeeper because I got it into the new box. And then Ken came, and there was a 3rd swarm that was active in progress, and I got video. It was just amazing to witness and see. And so but by the morning, my new swarm had upset.
Oh, really?
So my big question is, should I ever do what?
Put a queen splitter under the box.
Oh.
And that way the queen can't get out and they won't leave.
And then close the entrance reducer?
Oh, yeah, I'm just leaving your entrance reducer, but you have the bottom board.
Yeah.
You put a queen splitter on your bottom board, you put your box on top of the queen splitter, and then you put another queen splitter or you're gonna cover the whole thing, where the bees can go out of the queen splitter and come back, but the queen can't go, so if they try to abscond, they'll say, where is she? So they go back. That's the number 1 trick on for 2-3 days, because it might be a virgin that has to go out and mate. After 2-3 days, they're gonna get it.
So
by the morning.
I'll tell my swarm story. So the one I went after a swarm that Tim gave me, and it was late in the afternoon. I had a really long, hard day. Hadn't slept well the night before. I'm trying to express that I was not in a position to make real good decisions. So I go out kind of last minute to get this swarm, bring it home, and I don't have my woodenware to set up for it yet. So I've got it in the box. I'm like, okay, get a bottom board, get a box, get a lid, bring it out. Where am I gonna put this? Where am I gonna put this? Oh, here's these 2 nukes that were mating nukes that never produced. They still have some bees in them, but I need to get rid of them anyway. I'm just gonna move them. So I moved them over, put my bottom board, put my box, put the swarm in, shut it up. Okay, I'm gonna finally go have dinner, have a glass of wine. Go have a glass of wine, come back, go see what's going on. The entire swarm is on top of the big hive next to it. I think what happened is the foragers from there were still some bees in those nukes. They came back and they said, this is where we live. And so they went in and the swarm said, oh, sorry. And they absconded. But they didn't go very far. They just went on top of the hive next to them. And meanwhile, all those nuke bees are kind of mixed up. I was like, I don't know what the heck's going on. So what I did is I went ahead and put a newspaper on top of that deep that I put the swarm in, put another deep on top, collected the swarm again, dumped them in the top. So basically doing a newspaper combined of the swarm with whatever nuke bees are coming back. And so right now they're superseding our swarm. So they're all there. Although, this is so weird. So the Rust-Oleum people came to my house yesterday just to kind of scope it out. And I said, oh yeah, here's my apiary, blah, blah, blah. I look over at that hive. The top deep is at about a 30-degree angle of the bottom deep. And there's like a triangle exposed. I'm like, what the heck? I don't know bear. I mean, it wasn't bear. I don't know bears.
Really strong bees.
Really strong bees. Really strong wine. Well, either a really strong raccoon or a deer. I have a lot of deer, and maybe one just is kind of on the corner, maybe one bumped into it. But they were not happy, so the Rust-Oleum people got a show. Because I was like, I am sorry, I gotta get out there. And they seem to be okay, so. No, they're survivor bees. All right, very good. Any other discussion or anything we want to talk about tonight?
I seen something this year I've never seen before.
What's that?
A swarm. I was working on hive in Foxville,
one of my students and I swarmed behind me. I heard it swarming, so I tried hanging it down with my bucket, my high tool being on it. And they started coming back. I thought, okay, they're gonna come back. And so I went back in there and finished putting the side back together. And then I heard it again over my head. It ended up swarming 40 feet up in the pine tree. And I said, well, I'm too old for this.
Oh, no.
40 feet up, I was up in an elm tree. So I said, okay, you're gonna stay there. So I came back the next day, and my student's son come back from school and said, that swarm came down out of that elm tree, flew across the yard, and bivouacked on a low bush on a juniper.
Wow.
I've never seen them re-bivouac. Once they bivouac once, they usually take off.
Yeah.
I've never seen them again. They re-bivouacked, and we caught them in a swarm box, and we caught them real easy. They're gonna come down 6 foot off the ground.
That's interesting.
I've never seen them bivouac twice.
Yeah, interesting. Somebody else had a comment. Christy.
Two other things you can try if you're trying to get your queen to stay with the swarm. You know,